The quiet hum of the stardust drifter had always been Liam's comfort, a steady symphony accompanying his work as a xenobotanist, meticulously charting the sparse, fragile life forms clinging to distant nebulae. Today he was immersed in the iridescent glow of the Orion arm, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface, classifying a peculiar photosynthetic microorganism thriving in interstellar dust. The silence of deep space, broken only by his gentle breathing and the chi-fi, and the ship's gentle thrum, was a familiar embrace. One moment he was precisely identifying chloroplast structures. The next, the cosmos outside his panoramic view screen exploded in an impossible, emerald green light that swallowed everything. There was no warning, no tremor, just a searing, all-consuming brightness that pierced his eyes even through the ship's reinforced hull. A profound, crushing force slammed into him, tearing him from his seat, the drifter groaning around him before a dizzying, sickening lurch ripped him away entirely. His vision swam a kaleidoscope of green and black. His ears rang with a high-pitched whine that clawed at his sanity, and a cold, vast emptiness seemed to press in on every side, stealing his breath. When the blinding light finally receded, replaced by a softer, pervasive luminescence, Liam found himself sprawled on a floor that shimmered with an inner light, cool and impossibly smooth beneath his cheek. He pushed himself up, his limbs feeling strangely heavy, his head throbbing with a disorienting ache. The air was cool, smelling faintly of ozone, and something akin to blooming night flowers, a scent both alien and strangely compelling. He was no longer in his small, familiar ship. He was in a colossal chamber, stretching upwards into an unseen ceiling, its walls curving gracefully like the inside of an enormous polished shell. Pillars not of stone, but of swirling light and impossibly thin. Crystalline structures rose around him, reaching towards the unseen heavens. He was utterly alone in this vastness, or so he thought, until his gaze lifted. Standing before him, arranged in a silent, watchful semicircle, were beings that defied earthly description. They were tall, ethereal figures, their bodies appearing to be sculpted from pure, living light, encased in what looked like flexible, translucent armor that shifted with every imperceptible movement. Their faces, serene and unreadable, held eyes that glowed with an internal, gentle luminescence, like distant, miniature suns. They possessed a quiet majesty, a stillness that spoke of immense age and power. One, slightly taller than the rest, her crystalline armor adorned with subtle, intricate patterns that pulsed with soft energy, stepped forward. This was clearly the matriarch, radiating an aura of ancient authority that settled on Liam like a heavy cloak dot. No words were spoken aloud, yet a chorus of voices, clear and resonant, seemed to echo directly within Liam's mind, bypassing his ears. Entirely. Human Liam, the primary voice belonging to the matriarch, projected, "Do not be alarmed. You are safe. You have been brought here for a purpose." Safe? He was an alien prisoner in a cosmic cathedral. Alarm bells screamed in his head, but a strange, irresistible compulsion held him frozen. Then images, vivid and heartbreakingly clear, began to flood his consciousness, projected directly from their minds to his. He saw a sprawling, vibrant civilization, cities that floated among asteroids, starships that danced through nebulae, a people thriving in artistic and scientific brilliance. He saw their history, their advancements, their pride. And then the projection shifted, the colors dulling, the vibrant cities becoming silent, empty husks. He saw nurseries barren, their complex biodomes eerily still. He saw scientific instruments, once bustling with research, now dark, their data screens displaying stark, terrifying statistics. Genetic entropy, species-wide sterility, a slow, unstoppable decline into extinction. He felt their despair, their millennia-long struggle against an enemy they could not defeat with their technology alone, their own failing biology. The images zoomed in on a single regal figure, her face a canvas of profound melancholy, her eyes like the deepest, most distant nebulae, a princess exquisite, yet burdened by an unimaginable sorrow. The matriarch's voice returned, now tinged with a desperate urgency, cutting through the silence of the chamber. Our genetic lineage is failing. Our species, the Xylosians, faces oblivion. We have observed countless worlds, studied innumerable life forms. Only your species, humanity, possesses the unique genetic resilience, the vital diversity, the chaotic adaptability that we require. You, human Liam, have been chosen. You will marry our Princess Xylos and ensure the survival of our people. Liam stared, his mind reeling, struggling to process the impossible, absurd demand. Marry? Him? An alien princess? He, a simple xenobotanist who mostly talked to plants, was being ordered to wed a being from another star system to save an entire civilization? It was ludicrous. Marry? He stammered, his voice a pathetic squeak in the vast chamber. But I can't. Culturally it's impossible. And I don't even know her. I have no consent in this. He waved his hands frantically, a sudden surge of adrenaline making him bold, if foolish. He pointed back towards where his ship should have been. You can't just abduct someone and force them into this. My people, Earth. They'll come. Looking. The matriarch's glowing eyes remained fixed on him, unwavering. The telepathic response was immediate, firm, and entirely without malice, yet devastatingly final. Human Liam, we understand your customs, your concept of choice. However, our need outweighs such considerations. Our extinction is imminent. Your genetic makeup provides the only viable solution for the revitalization of our lineage. We have not acted lightly. This is not a request. It is a necessity. You are not a prisoner in a punitive sense, but you are also not free to leave. The future of the Xylosian Empire now rests within your hands. Liam felt the words sink into his bones, cold and heavy. He glanced again at the projection of Princess Xylos, her silent, sorrowful gaze seeming to meet his. He was trapped, utterly, irrevocably, caught in a desperate gambit for alien survival. And suddenly the silent, beautiful chamber felt like the most terrifying prison imaginable. Liam found himself in quarters that defied anything he had ever known. A space designed with an alien aesthetic of flowing lines and soft, pulsating light, yet undeniably luxurious. The walls shimmered with subtle patterns that shifted like deep-sea bioluminescence, and the air, still carrying that faint, sweet scent of ozone and night-blooming flowers, was perfectly regulated, always fresh, always at a comfortable temperature. His bed, a wide platform that seemed to float on a cushion of light, conformed perfectly to his body, offering a sleep more profound than any he'd experienced on Earth. Replicators, seamlessly integrated into the walls, produced any Earth cuisine. He desired from a perfectly brewed cup of coffee to a complex, multi-course meal, each dish indistinguishable from the original. Yet, despite the opulent comfort, the subtle hum of the energy field that sealed his door, the constant, gentle presence of unseen xylogen observers, and the sheer, overwhelming alienness of everything served as an inescapable reminder. This was a gilded cage. He was a prisoner, albeit one housed in unimaginable splendor, and the weight of an entire civilization's survival pressed down on him, heavier than any gravity. The Xylosians, in their quiet, efficient way, were meticulous hosts, but their hospitality was a means to an end, a way to ensure their precious genetic commodity remained healthy and compliant. Days bled into weeks, marked not by sunrises or sunsets, but by the rhythmic ebb and flow of Xylosian light cycles and the relentless influx of information. Liam was provided with advanced learning devices, not screens or books, but crystalline orbs that, when held, projected complex data, streams directly into his mind, bypassing language barriers and cultural nuances. He absorbed the Xylosian history, a saga of breathtaking scientific advancement, profound artistic expression, and a deep, almost spiritual connection to the cosmos. But beneath the glittering facade of their past lay the chilling reality of their present. He saw their genetic code, once a vibrant tapestry of diversity, now a fragile, unraveling thread. He witnessed the slow, agonizing decline, a millennia-long genetic entropy that had rendered their population almost entirely sterile. Their advanced medical science, capable of regrowing limbs, curing any disease, and even reversing aging, was utterly powerless against this fundamental flaw in their own genome. They could fix anything outside their core genetic structure, but the very essence of their being was broken. He watched holographic simulations of their breeding chambers, once bustling with new life, now eerily silent, their intricate machinery gathering dust. He heard the mournful, resonant songs of their elders, laments for a future that was slowly fading into nothingness. He saw the stoic, heartbreaking resignation in the eyes of their young, who understood they were likely the last generation. Humanity, with its wild, chaotic, and incredibly robust genetic makeup, with its seemingly endless capacity for adaptation and its diverse gene pool, was not just a solution. It was the only solution they had found in their exhaustive search across the galaxy. This wasn't a cruel demand, Liam slowly began to realize, but a desperate, final plea from a species on the brink. His cultural integration sessions with Princess Zelos became the focal point of his days. She would arrive silently, her luminous form gliding into his quarters, accompanied by a single, unobtrusive attendant. Zelos was even more captivating up close, her eyes truly like twilight nebulae, swirling with deep blues and purples, reflecting an ancient sorrow. She was reserved, almost painfully so, burdened by the immense pressure of her duty. Their initial conversations were stilted, formal, conducted through the omnipresent mental translator that made her thoughts appear as perfectly formed English sentences in his mind. She spoke of Xylosian customs, of their art, of the stars they had charted. Liam, in turn, tried to explain Earth, its diverse cultures, its strange humor, its love for simple things like rain or the taste of chocolate. He noticed her quiet curiosity, a subtle tilt of her head as he described something mundane, a faint flicker in her luminous eyes as he recounted a human anecdote. She observed his quirks, his expressive face, often contorted in confusion or surprise, his sometimes irreverent humor that clearly didn't always translate, his very different way of moving, less graceful, more grounded. He saw her struggle with the concept of individual choice, of personal freedom, ideas that were alien to a species so deeply ingrained with collective purpose. As the sessions continued, a fragile, unspoken understanding began to form between them. Liam realized Xylos wasn't thrilled with the arrangement either. She was merely resigned to her species' desperate gamble. He saw the same trapped look in her nebulae-like eyes that he felt in his own heart, hers, the prison of duty, his, the prison of circumstance. She was a princess, yes, but also a tool, a vessel for the survival of her people, just as he was. The insistence of her family, of the matriarch, wasn't malicious, he finally understood. It was the raw, desperate cry of a dying civilization, a cry so profound, so ancient, that it transcended all notions of personal rights or consent. It was a species fighting for its very breath, and they saw Liam as the only breath left. A strange, innate human empathy, a deep-seated desire to help, began to stir within him, slowly replacing his initial fear and anger. He was still terrified, still overwhelmed, but the sheer, heart-breaking desperation of the Xylosians, particularly reflected in Xylos's quiet sorrow, began to chip away at his resistance. He looked at the empty nurseries and the projected memories, heard the echoes of the mournful songs, and saw the fading light in Xylos's eyes, and a new unsettling thought began to take root. What if he could help? What if this impossible situation was, in fact, the most important thing he would ever do? The suspense wasn't just about his freedom anymore. It was about whether he, a single human, could truly make a difference against the tide of extinction. As weeks turned into months within his gilded cage, Liam's initial fear and anger slowly transmuted into a potent cocktail of empathy and intellectual obsession. He wasn't merely a captive anymore. He was a human, and humans, at their core, were problem solvers, especially when faced with a challenge as profound as the extinction of an entire species. The Xyloshandeda, once a terrifying symbol of his predicament, became his new battlefield. He pored over their vast genetic archives, their millennia of medical records, their intricate biological philosophies, searching for the crack in their perfect, elegant, yet ultimately rigid biological understanding. He noticed their approach was one of meticulous precision, a quest for flawless, predictable outcomes, a desire for absolute control over every cellular process. It was beautiful in its complexity, but it lacked the messy, unpredictable vitality of life as he knew it. Humanity, by contrast, thrived on imperfection, on adaptation, on the chaotic interplay of countless variables, on the very genetic noise that the Xylosians had meticulously purged from their own lineage in their pursuit of biological purity. This was the key, Liam realized, a fundamental difference in biological philosophy that, armed with this insight, Liam began to propose ideas that, to the Xylosian Council, must have sounded like heresy. He spoke of controlled mutation, not as a defect, but as a necessary engine of evolution. He theorized about epigenetic triggers, environmental cues that could unlock dormant genetic potential, a concept almost alien to their internally regulated biology. He even dared to suggest the reintroduction of what they considered junk DNA, the vast non-coding regions of the human genome that, to him, represented a vital reservoir of genetic resilience, a chaotic buffer against unforeseen biological threats. The Xylosian Council, a collection of venerable, luminous beings who had overseen their species' slow decline, listened with a mixture of skepticism and desperate hope. Their own scientists, brilliant as they were, had exhausted every avenue within their established paradigms. It was Princess Xylos, however, who became Liam's most crucial advocate. Having spent the most time with him, witnessing his relentless curiosity, his unconventional thought processes, and his raw, unyielding determination, she vouched for his radical theories. Her quiet, steady conviction, born from countless hours of observing his human way of thinking, began to sway the council. Their marriage, initially a stark, forced arrangement, slowly began to transform into a profound scientific collaboration, a desperate, shared endeavor to cheat oblivion. Together, Liam and Xylos became an unlikely yet formidable team in the Xylosian biological labs. The labs themselves were marvels of bioengineering, shimmering with unseen energies and filled with holographic projections of complex molecular structures. Liam, with his human intuition for biological chaos, would propose a wild, seemingly illogical pathway, and Xylos, with her encyclopedic knowledge of Xylosian physiology and her species' advanced technology, would translate his abstract concepts into precise, actionable protocols. They worked tirelessly, often for cycles that blurred the line between Xylosian day and night, fueled by nutrient paste and the shared immense pressure of their task. Their conversations, once formal and stilted, now flowed freely, punctuated by shared frustrations over failed experiments and exhilarating breakthroughs that sent ripples of hope through the silent labs. Their bond deepened through these shared trials, a camaraderie forged in the crucible of scientific desperation. Liam saw past Xylos's regal reserve, glimpsing the fierce intelligence and deep compassion that lay beneath. Xylos, in turn, began to see Liam not as a mere genetic resource, but as a brilliant, if utterly unpredictable, partner, a human whose very mesalliances was proving to be their salvation. However, not all Xylosians embraced this radical human intervention. A traditionalist faction, a small but influential group of elders and purists, viewed Liam's presence and his proposed methods with alarm and disgust. They clung to the ancient Xylosian ideals of genetic purity, seeing Liam as an abomination, a foreign contaminant threatening to irrevocably corrupt their noble lineage. They whispered of sacrilege, of inviting a biological plague into their sacred gene pool. Their opposition, initially confined to hushed debates in council chambers, slowly escalated. Mysterious power fluctuations would disrupt Liam's experiments. Critical data files would vanish, and subtle, almost imperceptible sabotage would plague their work. One cycle, a lab drone, usually docile, malfunctioned violently, narrowly missing. Xylos, as she worked beside Liam, he realized then that the threat was no longer theoretical. These traditionalists were willing to actively disrupt, even in danger, their own princess, seeing her as corrupted by Liam's influence, a vessel for, an impure solution. Liam, drawing on a well of human courage he didn't know he possessed, stood his ground. He confronted the council, not with scientific arguments alone, but with a surprising tactical ingenuity he'd learned from decades of navigating unpredictable terrestrial ecosystems. He installed redundant data backups, set up subtle energy traps around their workstations, and even with Xylus's cautious approval, used his knowledge of human psychology to predict and counter their opponent's moves. He wasn't just defending his work, he was defending Xylos, a fierce protective instinct rising within him. He was no longer just a resource, a genetic solution. He was a partner, a protector, and a force to be reckoned with. The suspense tightened. Around them a double-edged sword of scientific uncertainty and internal political intrigue. Would his radical methods work before their time ran out? Could they overcome the silent, insidious opposition of those who would rather see their species die pure than live changed? The fate of the Xylosian Empire hung precariously in the balance, dependent on the success of a human's unconventional solution and his unexpected bravery in a world that was not his own. The air in the Xylosian biological labs crackled with a nervous energy that was almost palpable, a stark contrast to the usual serene hum of their advanced machinery. Weeks of relentless work, of countless failed trials and minute adjustments, had culminated in this moment. Liam, his face smudged with fatigue, but his eyes alight with a fierce, almost manic hope, watched as the final targeted viral vector, a microscopic marvel of human-derived genetic markers encapsulated within a Xylosian delivery system, was introduced into the first batch of test subjects, a small cluster of Xylosian embryonic cells. Xylos stood beside him, her luminous form radiating a quiet intensity, her gaze fixed on the holographic display that projected the intricate dance of cellular division. This wasn't a traditional genetic cross, as the Xylosians had initially envisioned. Liam's unconventional methods had led to a far more elegant and ultimately more Xylosian solution. It was a bioengineered kickstart, a precise introduction of specific human genetic signals designed not to interbreed, but to awaken dormant genetic pathways within the Xylosian genome itself, allowing their own species to naturally diversify and, crucially, regain fertility. The suspense in the lab was suffocating, each passing moment stretching into an eternity. Had they truly found the answer, or was this just another dead end in a long line of desperate attempts? Then a flicker, a subtle, almost imperceptible change in the cellular replication rate on the holographic display. Then another, more pronounced, a ripple of excitement, a collective intake of breath from the Xylosian scientists gathered around them. The cells were not just dividing. They were diversifying, exhibiting the very genetic noise and variability that had been absent for millennia. Cautious optimism bloomed into joyous disbelief as the first successful trials were confirmed. The data, once stark and terrifying, now sang with the promise of new life. The Xylosian nurseries, silent for centuries, echoing only with the mournful songs of their elders, began to stir. The first sounds of new Xylosian life, faint at first, then growing stronger. Soft chirps, gentle coos, the unmistakable sounds of infants filled the hallowed halls. It was a symphony of rebirth, a miracle woven from human ingenuity and Xylosian precision. Liam had saved them, not by marrying the princess in the way they initially insisted, a forced union of two disparate species, but by empowering them to save themselves, by reigniting the very spark of life within their own lineage. The marriage, once a symbol of his captivity, had transformed into something far more profound. A profound, respectful partnership, built on shared purpose and mutual admiration. The transformation in Princess Xylos was perhaps the most striking. Once stoic, burdened by the immense weight of her duty, her luminous eyes now sparkled with a light that was not merely reflective, but truly vibrant. She regarded Liam with genuine affection, a quiet admiration that transcended cultural barriers. Their bond, forged in the crucible of scientific desperation and the shared experience of facing extinction, had deepened into an unbreakable connection. He was no longer a captive, no longer merely a genetic resource, but a revered guest, an architect of their future, a true friend. The Xylosian matriarch, her ancient, serene features soft by an overwhelming relief and gratitude, approached Liam. Her telepathic voice, once commanding, now resonated with profound respect. Human Liam, she projected, her thoughts filled. With warmth, you have given us more than life. You have given us hope. You have shown us that true strength lies not in purity, but in adaptability, in the courage to embrace the unknown. She then made an unprecedented offer. The Xylosian Empire offers you an unparalleled position, royal ambassador to humanity. You will be our voice, our bridge, cementing an unbreakable alliance between our two species, an alliance founded on shared survival and mutual respect. Liam stood there, the weight of her words settling upon him. He had the option to return to Earth, a hero, a legend, the man who saved an alien race. He could go back to his quiet life as a xenobotanist, forever changed but free. Yet as he looked around the bustling nurseries, now filled with the joyful sounds of new Xylosian life, at the vibrant future he had helped create, his gaze settled on Xylos. Her luminous eyes met his, a silent understanding passing between them. He thought of the long nights in the lab, the shared frustrations, the exhilarating breakthroughs, the quiet moments of companionship that had blossomed into something akin to family. He had found a purpose far grander than charting nebulae, a connection deeper than any he had known. His place, at least for now, was here, amidst the shimmering cities and the newly vibrant nurseries. He had found a family not of blood, but of shared destiny, a bond forged in the fires of near extinction. He had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its resilience, its chaotic adaptability or its scientific ingenuity, but its boundless capacity for empathy, for forging connections where none seemed possible, for extending a helping hand across the vast, silent void of space. The future was unwritten, but one thing was clear. The alliance between humanity and the Xylosians, born from a desperate abduction, was now a beacon of hope in the cosmos, a testament to the unexpected ways in which life finds a way, and how family can be redefined among the stars.